Thank you. As mentioned, so I come from Trojan Marinex. Trojan is a Canadian company and part of Trojan Technologies, which is a world largest UV maker. So we work in municipal field on wastewater treatment, drinking water treatment, ultra-pure water treatment. So we have a lot of water treatment expertise in-house. On marine field, so we are cooperating closely with GEA Westphalia. So we have both the marine expertise and the water treatment expertise together. And as said, so we applied as a first company in the world US Coast Guard type approval 1.5 months ago, 10th of March. And as mentioned earlier many times here, so AMS is an interim solution. So AMS is not a US Coast Guard type approval. And because we know quite well the US Coast Guard type approval process, so I was planning to talk a little bit from the supplier side. We have heard so many presentations here mention about the US Coast Guard type approval and the legislative side, but from the supplier side it looks a little bit different. With AMS, there's a lot of pitfalls. So first of all, it is valid only for 5 years. And there is this obsolescence risk. So if you install an AMS system at the moment, and then the supplier will not get the US Coast Guard type approval for that system. So what do? You have to take it off. There is also written in the US law that after there exist type-approved systems, you are not allowed to install AMS systems anymore. So AMS, sooner or later, will become obsolete. How fast? So there could be that after 3 type approvals, so the AMS is not valid anymore. There could be that it requires 5 systems suppliers before the AMS becomes obsolete. The US Coast Guard type approval, as said, is different from the IMO type approval. And we talked about, or Wärtsilä talked about the technical differences, but there are also 2 other major points. And first of all, that it's much more prescriptive. So the method how you do the testing is clearly written. It is not a guideline like the IMO. The second is that the US Coast Guard type approval testing is fully independent. So basically, as a supplier, we have to leave the test facility when the unit is tested. So the test facility is testing the system, not yourself. There's 2 ways of supplier to get the US Coast Guard type approval, and one is, of course, you do the full testing. But the second way of doing it is existing data review. And I've heard many companies saying that, yes, we have applied for US Coast Guard type approval. But most probably these companies who say so, they have supplied to the US Coast Guard so-called gap analysis, which is kind of specifying the differences between their IMO type approval and their US Coast Guard type approval requirements. So with doing this, so they might get some easiness to the type approval process by avoiding some of the testing. So when we look at the type approval process time schedule, so it can take up to 2 to 3 years to get a US Coast Guard type approval. We are at the last spot there before the US Coast Guard type approval. So we have gone through all these steps already. Many of the companies who have given the intention of getting the US Coast Guard type approval, they are basically just signing the independent lab to do the type approval testing. So 2 to 3 years from type approval. So if I would be the ship owner, I would never go with these system suppliers. I would select somebody who's much further on the process already. We talked shortly about the live and dead issue here, and this is always coming as a question for a UV supplier. How can you get a US type approval because you are not killing the organisms? This is true. We are not killing the organisms. We are making them unable to reproduce. And if you look at the chart on the top right corner here, so the method what US Coast Guard has given is so-called vital stain assay. So that is not responding to the UV dose at all, because we are not killing the organisms. So we have to look at the growth-based methods. And the US Coast Guard gives us a possibility to do so by proving that the method is as effective as the vital stain method. And when we talk about UV, we have to understand how we disinfect the organisms. So basically, we are penetrating UV radiation to the DNA structure of the organisms. And this DNA structure is welded together so that the organisms cannot reproduce anymore. So they are sterile. And the US Coast Guard has taken this approach that the organism has to be killed. But when we go a little bit further into the US law, they talk about reproduction. So if you stop the reproduction, you are actually doing the job. So this is what the UV companies are doing. The method, what we are talking about when we look at the growth-based method is called MPN, most probable number, and it is a growth-based measurement, so you look at the organism growth during 24 hours, 48 hours, and you see is there any regrowth of organisms in the test samples. And luckily, IMO type approval test facilities have done more than 10 years work with the MPN method already, so there's a lot of experience on that. And we are utilizing that experience by showing to the US Coast Guard that the MPN method is as effective as the staining method. Plus the fact that we have gone as a company through this already with the drinking water in USA, with the wastewater in USA, so this is nothing new to the UV industry. As mentioned here, so US Coast Guard type approval is a little bit better in the sense that it gives the ship owners also the possibility to compare the system suppliers. So it gives a clearly statement on the salinity range where the system can be operated. It gives the temperature range where the system can be operated. And it gives also the UV transmittance, TRO dosage, etc. So it is much more informative document for you when you select your system supplier. And if we talk about, for example, UV transmittance, so UV transmittance is water quality measurement. So basically it gives a percentage how much UV radiation is left after 1 centimeter of water column. So if there is 93% left, like in Mexico here, so the water quality is crystal clear. It's very good. There's no organic waste in the water. But if you go to river ports, like in Shanghai or New Orleans, the water quality normally is a little bit less pure. And it doesn't mean that it is polluted, but there is a lot of organic waste coming from rain, from the rivers, from agriculture, etc. And that is preventing the UV radiation going further in the water. And it is important that the system you are selecting, it is tested to the lowest UV transmittance percentage. So we have tested our system to 44% UV transmittance, when the market leader at the moment on UV technology is at 80%. If you select the system with 80%, so that means that on 4 out of these 6 ports, they have to give an alarm because the water is not sufficiently treated. So it is very important that you select the system which has a very low UV transmittance recorded on the type approval certificate. So last but not least, so this is how the system looks like. We have integrated the UV and the filtration to one body. It is purely designed for marine industry and ballast water. And we have all the certification, basically IMO, AMS, EX certification for the whole range. Plus, we will be the first company to get the US Coast Guard type approval, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months. The footprint with this combined solution is very small, so up to 50% less than any UV companies in the world. And also because we are using low-pressure UV lamps, so we can show 50% less power consumption than any other UV companies. So it is a well-functioning system for many ships. Plus, we have this strategic partnership with GEA Westphalia, who is selling our system worldwide and also giving service. Thank you.